Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. This episode is brought to you by real estate agent Cole Humphreys. Today on the show, we get to speak with Maria de la Luz Santi. Maria is the Director of Minority Outreach for the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. Maria has a vast knowledge on the immigration system from personal experience as well as educational studies. Today we get to dive into that exact topic. Enjoy. 3, 2, 1. Hey Maria, how are you?
Hey Cole, doing good.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, trust me. I always wonder, I start with Luz, but then I see Maria. What
happened?
Let's explain that. Let's start with that.
Okay, well, let me tell you that my legal name in Mexico, I was born and raised in Mexico.
Okay.
And my full name is Maria de la Luz Montes Tapia. So Luz is kind of the short name, for Maria de la Luz. And that's why a lot of people know me as Luz.
Very good.
Yes. And Maria, obviously, once that I became a resident first, I had to choose what last name and which of the names I would like to use. And obviously I went with my first name, Maria, and then the last name Santi, which is my husband's last name.
Okay. Your husband's last name is Santi.
Correct.
Okay. Let's go here. What is your occupation and title?
Okay. I am the Director of Minority Outreach at the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce.
Excellent. And how long have you been doing that?
4 years and 2 months.
4 years and 2 months.
Yes, sir.
To the T, right?
Yes.
And so I wanted to clarify that before we got into it. So English is your second language then?
Correct.
And by the way, you're doing great. I mean, obviously there's an accent, but doing very well with that. And you said you were born in Mexico.
Correct.
When did you move to the States?
10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's not too long ago.
No. August 1st, it's going to be the 10th official year.
Okay.
And yes, I spent 32 years of my life in Mexico.
No way.
Yes, I did.
And so 4 of those were with the chamber. What did you do before that?
Before that, well, I started as every immigrant here, yes. And I started working cleaning houses.
Oh, way.
Yes, I did. Of course.
I love that because regardless of who you are, what you're doing, that's work.
Exactly.
And sometimes probably not paid that well, sometimes paid decently, but what that is an effort. I want to work. I want to make something of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity.
Right.
So then how'd you go from cleaning houses then to working at the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce?
Okay, well, when I have immigrated from Mexico to the U.S., pretty much what I wanted is, number one, to have a better life and to provide a better life for me and my children. So I started working like that because as many immigrants, I didn't have a legal authorization to work.
Yeah. Okay.
So I couldn't perform on anything that I had on my background.
Right.
And you have to survive.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I did. Years passed by, and afterwards I met my husband, and he is an American citizen, and that's how I got the opportunity to get a social security number as a permanent permanent resident.
Wow.
So once that I got the social security number and the authorization to work, I went to apply to different places, and I worked with I don't know if I can say the name of the school that I used to work at.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Okay.
School district somewhere.
Harmony Science Academy.
Okay.
So I went to work with Harmony Science Academy in Austin as a teacher assistant. And what they took from my background was my very well knowledge about the Spanish language, because
Yeah.
I'm an attorney in Mexico.
Wow.
Yes.
Wait. In Mexico, you're an attorney?
Yes, sir.
That's so cool.
Wait for the final result. So I stayed 2 years working for Harmony Science, and I pretty much learned the language with the kids.
Yeah.
I had not too much knowledge about the language. It was not my first.
The English language.
Exactly,
Okay.
the
yeah.
English language, right. So I was struggling, trying to have conversations with my mother-in-law, with my husband.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, and trying to understand what the teachers wanted from me whenever that I had a meeting with my children at school.
Yeah.
So I had to improve. I had to learn it, and how it began with the kids and the pre-kindergarten. I was the teacher assistant of
They're
that.
learning too.
Right. So that's how I started. Afterwards, then this was in Austin. I had to move to Dallas with in regard of my husband's new job, and I started working for a law office.
Okay.
So I was doing translations for an immigrant attorney and
Wow.
a criminal attorney in front of the judge. So I was
No
yes.
way. Is that certification, right? Is there, or is that just the luck of the draw? I
Yes,
mean,
there is a certification, but there is not like a specific requirement of you having the certification to
Yeah.
do that for the attorney that you work at,
right.
because pretty much the attorney knows that you are proficient in the language in
Yeah.
both languages, but also it's a kind of a thing that any attorney might have at their offices. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And afterwards, that's how I came to the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. Once that I decided to start studying here,
Yeah.
revalidate all my credits,
Yeah.
and I ended up with a master's degree in
Oh,
law.
No way.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is your master's degree in law, is that a Mexico? But so in the States, you have a master's degree in law.
Yes, sir.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to take the bar? Maybe, maybe not.
That's a project.
Yeah. So my father's an attorney.
Yes, I know.
Being around him growing up, I've just always been around attorneys. I'm kind of argumentative just for that purpose alone. I've learned that there's different types of law. So one, law in Mexico obviously is law
Completely different.
completely different, but
Right.
you've got the same general approach, right? I mean, it's studying books about
Yeah. Let's say that the 30% of it is an approach. So pretty
an
much,
approach.
yeah, you have to. I had to learn a completely different legal
Yeah.
legal program.
So the attorney you worked for was an immigration attorney?
Yes,
Wow.
she is an immigration and criminal attorney.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
Maribel does here in the office.
awesome.
The building, yeah.
Okay, and
So
because
you're
of-
familiar with the immigration process, not
I do.
only through the legal aspect, but also through your
the
own
personal-
experience.
Absolutely,
Wow,
absolutely.
very cool.
Mhm.
And so I guess this is kind of tough, but the chamber deal, I know you're having a blast doing it, and, but do you ever think about practicing law? I mean, is this something that you've considered?
Yes.
But no rush.
No rush, and my main purpose it is to open a nonprofit legal services
Wow.
organization.
Wow.
I do see the struggles of all the Latino community,
Yeah.
and honestly, the cost of all the governmental fees and also the cost of an attorney nowadays, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And with all the actual social situations and all the movement,
Absolutely.
it has been tough.
So I want to first off, it's audio, so I can cut this out. I feel weird at this door. I want people to jump in. Okay, so it's a very sensitive subject, and politics is involved. So sometimes you just hear the word immigration and you almost have this instant reaction to one side or the other. Like you don't even know what we're talking about. But my goal, in talking about it here, and also I'm going to get Maribel on, is to talk about the real problems and real issues, and not make a judgment on it, but what is the problems and issues. So I'm going to make a comment, and this is my thought. And so that doesn't mean it's concrete, and this is the way I believe.
Right.
But I like to try to figure this out. There is, and this is Cole Humphreys. I think that immigrants, people wanting to come to the States, is like amazing thing. And it's like, bring us your tire, bring us your whatever. People come, please. Please. But anyway, I also think that assimilation is quite important. Not to a point to where you lose your identity, obviously. One of my biggest growths as a person has been my introduction to the Latin culture. I did that primarily through living with a Costa Rican family for 2 months. And then just being in Grand Prairie, where literally my side of town is 80 to 90% Hispanic. So by no way am I saying I'm Mr. Latino, but I've definitely learned a whole nother culture that I'm a better person. So immigration, welcome. Assimilation, you need to do it, but not to the degradation of who you are, right? So I kind of wanted to see if you had some kind of thoughts on, you have had an assimilation process, to an extent anyway, and I wanted to kind of touch on that and see, one, how you feel about it, in the sense that how much you think you may have assimilated. And assimilation to what, right? I'm not saying assimilate to something, but there's obviously two different cultures intermingling, and maybe it's just a creation of your own culture, right? A new culture. Like here in Grand Prairie, you have a Latin culture and you have a American culture, and now you kind of have probably, it's not an American culture and it's not a Latin culture, it's its own in together. So
right.
Touch on that if you can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, wow, that's a very, very interesting point. I'll start saying that based on my experience, based on my own story, I came to the U.S. being an adult already.
Okay.
So I was 32 years old,
Okay.
right? So all my family concepts, my cultural environment, everything that I knew about life was out of a Latino country, a Latin country, which is Mexico, right? So I grew up with so many different ideas, also so many different, not only cultural, but social paths, and, you know, everything about how to live life was based on that Mexican model,
Yeah,
Latino
okay.
model, right? So when I came to the U.S., number one, I had to face a different language.
Yeah.
That was the first one.
I'll tell you, the barriers of communication are strong.
Mm-hmm.
My ability to learn the new language and now be able to communicate was with my neighbor, the guy who I live next to, has opened up so many doors.
Mm-hmm.
Before I spoke Spanish, me and my neighbor simply didn't get along. One time a tree fell down between our houses, and he blamed, it was my tree, but it was on his side, and we couldn't even talk to each other. It was basically like
it was the tree of the friendship.
Right. And that tree kind of, well, bad friendship, really. Fast forward a few years, I'm now speaking Spanish, not fluently, but I can communicate in Spanish. And I show up one day, and I was talking to him, and I said something in Spanish, and he goes, "Oh, you speak Spanish?" And now we're suddenly going back and forth in Spanish.
Right.
And now the guy's like inviting me over for cookouts, and he calls me and sends me text messages, and we're like friends.
That's good.
And it's just amazing that for years prior to that, it was just button heads. I don't want to talk to him. Get away from me. Simply because we couldn't communicate.
Right.
So I recognize that as a major.
Okay, so let me put everything in just one thing. Imagine that situation of you not having the opportunity to communicate with your neighbor. Imagine that in front of many more, in front of a city, a complete, a full city of people that you don't understand.
Yeah.
Being part of that kind of people that doesn't know exactly what an advertisement says.
Yeah.
Or a TV commercial says. It's difficult, and unfortunately, there is a lot of Latino community that, unfortunately, they do not want to, how to say, like to really walk through that barrier.
Yeah.
What normally we do, it is to start looking for programs in Spanish.
Yeah.
To go to the places where we know that we will see everything in Spanish.
Yeah.
Our kids are sent to bilingual schools, and we always get along with people in our community that they speak Spanish.
Wow.
So, in my opinion, that was something that I have considered like a mistake.
Okay.
Because we are here. What's the first thing that you have to do? You have to learn the language. You have to be able to speak, to order something, to answer something.
And I want to comment, sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but that learning the language is right. But I think the proper term might be learning to communicate, right?
Right.
Because that's the key. And your language or my language doesn't matter. But the communication,
right.
what form that is.
Right. And also, let's say that even if I now communicate, I know the language right now, right? On the best of my abilities.
Very good.
But there is something, the culture in between.
Yeah.
Always. Like you said, you think that your neighbor maybe, you and your neighbor maybe didn't communicate because it was a different language. But in my culture, sometimes if the person did not say hello to you, you have to wait for that person to say hello to you first. Or if you are younger than somebody that is leading a conversation, you have to wait until that person finish. Or if that person wants to include you in that conversation, then that's how you start to mingle.
Right.
But all those things is because you have learned through all the generations, and it's part of your culture. You have it's something that makes you not to be so easygoing or very social. That's something that you learn once that you complete that fusion, once that you emerge into being a Latino and then getting into the American culture.
Yeah, those small things that we don't even recognize we're doing are done different in different cultures and different approaches. And so I'm offended by something that I don't even know I did, or they're offended by something I did that I don't know what
Exactly, because
happened.
normally what happens in the Latino culture is that, number one, you have to respect your parents, and you have to respect the people that they are kind of on the same age as your parents. So we don't communicate in the same way because we respect you. And that probably looks like I don't want to mingle. I don't want to communicate with you, or I'm not interested on having a conversation with you. So that is not what is happening. What is happening is that I'm showing you respect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll challenge, and this is not a political thing, but I'll challenge anybody who is against immigration to learn about somebody else's culture besides their own, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll challenge somebody that's for, and it's interesting just saying for and against immigration, because the issues are so widespread that just that simple statement doesn't explain everything, right? Like just for immigration, against immigration.
Right.
Man, that's...
As I said, from my own story, my experience, there are so many people that we came here with a reason. You don't know if we are here because we have been threatened, because we are really fighting to get a better life, because there are so many difficulties in our countries. And yes, we are here probably without admission, without authorization, but that doesn't make us people that we will be criminals.
Right.
That we will be, and this is my opinion, that we will be doing wrong to the U.S., to my country, the U.S. I'm very blessed to be here, and I'm very happy to be here. America has given me a second opportunity, a second life. America has given me not only the opportunity to fulfill my personal dreams, but also my professional dreams. Mm-hmm. My children, they are doing fantastic. I do comply with anything that is required from the government, and also with all the ethics and with all the personal requirements as an American citizen.
Okay.
So
you're doing so. Here's my assessment of the whole political thing. Mm-hmm. I think that any political side should, and you're wrong if you don't, agree that the immigration system needs reform.
I do.
The current system, although probably one of the more liberal than other countries, it's more open than other countries, it needs major reform. It needs, and that's one of the reasons I want to have Maribel, my immigration attorney, in here. She's hands on deck every day, all day, mm-hmm. with the things that need to happen. And so what are the focuses to make that easier? We want, the term illegal in itself is almost offensive, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a description of someone who entered into a different area without authorization, right? Mm-hmm. But it's come to a point where just saying that word is an offense. But how do you make that person legal? And really, that's where I want to address. Even if it's just saying name, number, address, right? Next, please, right? Just so we have some general reference.
Right.
Because
it's
you and I both have that, right? I mean,
right.
We both have to.
Right. It's not easy.
And again, I don't blame any of them. I blame that the system needs to be mm-hmm. reformed.
Right. Any country that it's having so many changes that the economy requires from so many employees, so many hands to take care of the of all the benefits of that country, of course needs to regulate. And I understand that, but sometimes the regulations they do not go along with what reality is, with what all the day by day situations are in the country. So of course I support an immigration reform, and this is not because I want my country my country to open the doors to all the immigrants just because.
You're right.
It's not going to happen like that, of course.
That's a good.
Yeah, but of course this is going to be good. Number one, the Latino community has become one of the most important workers for the economy.
Okay, yeah, as economically.
Exactly. And also, there is a lot of opportunities for everybody. We are such a great country. We have so many opportunities for so many people. We are here already, right? The immigrants, the illegal immigrants are here already.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So even though if you don't decide to have an immigration reform, we are still, through our taxes, giving them services, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why not to have an immigration reform in order to provide them a legal status for what? For them to also help our sustainable, procedures for the country, and also to help with the tax income, right? So I do see that need. So.
Okay. So I'm sort of leading this to a direction. Before I get there, so you still have family in Mexico?
Yes, I do. My parents live there.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do.
Are they in Mexico as well?
Two of my brothers live in Austin, and
very cool.
my sister lives in Mexico.
Excellent, excellent. So are you able to visit often?
Yes.
Do you mind asking where?
The state of Mexico.
The state of Mexico.
Yes,
so
it's not Mexico City, but the state of
outside of Mexico City then?
Yes,
okay.
like 45 minutes. Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of familiar with where Querétaro is.
Okay.
Is this northwest of Mexico City, like Querétaro, or?
It's south.
So south, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So far away from Querétaro.
I'm not good with north, south, but yeah, I know that it's south.
So through that, 10 years, or let's say 6 years, you were working directly hands-on with immigration law and immigrants and the courts, working in the courts, right? This is what you did. So then you've taken the next step now and been able to work in your community as the minority, I'm going to say liaison, but coordinator for the Chamber of Commerce. Start with, if you don't mind, touch on that and how you think that's benefited the Latin community, and how you think, especially here in Grand Prairie, how important that role is.
Right. Well, Grand Prairie is growing. It's blooming in a way that even 4 years ago, I never imagined that we will have all this growth. The Latino community here, it's here in a very important percentage. So when the Chamber of Commerce had the opportunity to reach out to all those businesses, most of them, not all, but most of them, they the principal director of each business, or the decision maker of each business didn't speak English.
Wow.
So the first generation doesn't speak English. The second generation does.
Yeah.
But the decision maker is the first generation.
Yep.
How do you approach the first generation? You had to have somebody who speaks Spanish,
Yep.
right? So when I started to work with the Chamber of Commerce, they hired me because of my Spanish, not because of my English.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Yes. And my background helped me
Oh, yeah.
to develop different programs and to develop different relationships.
Yeah.
And also to provide different alternatives to the Hispanic businesses here. At the end of the day, maybe I'm not, working for the rights of people in a courthouse, but I'm still prevailing the rights of the people
100%.
through their businesses,
Yeah, because, yes, being an immigrant and having your day in court, to try to become a citizen is a dream, and affecting that is prestigious, right? But like you said, there's plenty that are already here with established businesses, paying taxes, that haven't quite learned the language yet. And before, what were they doing community-wise? And we were just talking about assimilating. And again, I'm not saying assimilating to my culture. I'm saying just assimilating together in a group, right? So when I want to say Canales Furniture, do we deal with them? Does the chamber deal with them?
Yeah.
And many of their day-to-day folks are strong accented English, but maybe their generals, you said the decision makers don't speak English, but the last couple of years I've noticed they're very involved.
That's true.
But whereas before they were just cruising along doing business and had no reason to get involved in their community.
I think that now the business community, the Hispanic business community, has a reason of why they have to invest in this city.
Okay.
This city has been always a diverse city, but now we have so many opportunities for businesses, for Latino businesses to establish here.
I want to argue that, and this is against any Spanish empowerment, actually, because I say that where else does a Spanish business owner thrive? Here in Grand Prairie, in my downtown. I say my downtown. I grew up 2 blocks from downtown.
It's your downtown.
that's why I say my downtown. But that's why I mean it's against Spanish empowerment in the sense that give us more opportunity. I'll say, hey, right here in Grand Prairie, come on down. Like there are more Spanish business owners and Spanish influence.
Right. And you know what is the magic of the Chamber of Commerce? That we are a unique chamber. We are a diverse chamber. There is no segregation.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what is your culture, what is your background. You will be served on the same terms for everybody in our chambers and in our chamber. And also, if you are a Hispanic owner, we will try to teach you in your language, to help you in your language, but also to work with you to emerge into the American culture, because sometimes that's another barrier, you know.
Sure.
That's another situation.
One of the important things of doing that, I keep using assimilating to an American culture, but not just American culture, is getting out of your own views and ways.
Right.
But for business purposes, you're opening up your market. I mean, let's just say Grand Prairie was a very large 60% Hispanic, very large number. If you only did Hispanic culture, your 40% of the market is out. So
you don't want that.
So as a chamber, reaching out to them to help them assimilate to just something general, not out of your own culture.
Right.
Opens up their business opportunities 40%. Have you seen that? And I know we're just talking kind of a little philosophy here almost, but has that been something you've been able to see through your work with some of the businesses?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Every day.
And we're talking restaurant or a handyman up to a bigger business. Is that accurate too?
Yes,
Wow.
it is.
Wow. And at some point we had an Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Is that still a thing, or has this helped combine those two? Do you have any?
Let me remember the name. It was the Greater Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, something like that. My understanding is that they merged to the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. They become just one chamber. It helped a lot, yes, to have them for a while, because it was a way of representation for the Hispanic businesses. But when they merged, just one and only organism was created.
Good. You're not competing.
No, sir.
It's not sometimes Hispanic chamber indicates the other is the white chamber, right? And so you no longer have this separation. I like to touch on too, since we're talking about that exact subject, is how did I didn't even realize it was a thing that Mr. Alex Godina was the first
chairman of the board,
Hispanic chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been in business for 14 and a half years now, and 13 of those years was with the chamber, and I didn't even think twice about whether or not there was a Hispanic chairman of the board of directors. And you start looking at all the businesses, a lot of the money, the people who donate money are super heavily involved. Those are the ones that run it. Well, Texas Trust has been a member for a long time, and Alex came in there and was just involved in everything he could. Who was before Alex?
Mr. Matthew Lowe.
Mr. Lowe, yeah.
Yes.
They were talking about diversity.
Exactly.
I mean, we're just knocking it out of the park. Did that have much? I think it did, but did that have significance to you when Alex became our chairman, and before, when you knew that he was going to be chairman, or was it, or did you think, wait, he is, and was it kind of a surprise, or did you kind of know? I'm kind of curious how that.
Let me tell you that in these 4 years that I've been working there, every single chairperson has something very significant for me, for the direction that I lead, and for the chamber in general. I haven't seen a lack of opportunity for any kind of culture to become part of the chamber.
Right.
And that's very important. Mr. Matthew Lowe, as a leader of the Asian community, did a wonderful job.
And you know, as the leader of the Asian community is properly put, because I want to say he's Vietnamese and his wife's Korean. And the first two Asians I think of are Japanese and Chinese,
right.
Or China and Japan. And those are two other ones that Matthew leads. And anyway, he incorporates the term Asian all together. And I think that's pretty powerful.
Right. So once that Matthew passed the baton to Alex Godina, I knew that Alex was Hispanic, but I never look into, okay, let's see how many Hispanic chairpersons.
You don't think to look.
Yeah.
Especially in a town as old as Grand Prairie, you almost assume there was, or you don't even think about that.
Right.
I didn't think about that as a thing. So then how did that come about? Did they know? Did somebody kind of look around and say, hold on, have we had a Hispanic chairman before? Is that,
well, I guess that's how it happened.
That is so cool. And so you know what that makes me think is, one, he's not the chairman just because we want to get the first Hispanic in there, right? He's a chairman because is very much deserving.
His own efforts and his wonderful development as a board of director first was what led him to be called the chairperson.
Well, and his personality too, right? I mean, the guy's just a
very
bundle of joy.
Yes, there was. I'll say that I never got a no from him.
Good. Hey, who chooses the theme on the
community awards?
The community awards.
The chair.
Outgoing.
Yes.
Okay, so Back to the Future.
It was
this year.
Alex
It was
Godina.
Alex, and that's what made me think how much I already liked the guy, but I liked him even more. That Back to the Future theme. I mean, that's just so random to think about, but then to actually do it and be the get up, and he had the whole doctor.
Yes.
I can't think of his name. It's one of my favorite movies. He had the white hair. Well done, Alex. That's so good to hear. Of course, he continues on to support.
He does.
Andrew. Okay, so the chamber then. Can you touch on like some upcoming events and something that one specific to your role for some of the Latin culture community, and then chamber in general as well?
Okay. Well, we have so many activities every month. This is going to be the second week of March already, and
God.
I know. I know.
Springtime, though, I love it. It
Yeah.
flies by so fast.
Well, let's get ready.
Yeah.
So we have the monthly luncheon.
Okay.
The monthly luncheon is going to be on March 18.
Okay.
And also we have many other ribbon cuttings.
Yeah, those are always fun to go to. A perfect
Yes,
opportunity to socialize,
yes, and to
meet
new
people.
who's coming to our city, and
Yeah.
to support the new business that they have a new business here in Grand Prairie.
Right. Anytime I've not got a lot of direct business off of my chamber involvement, but the people I've met that were involved and stayed involved sent me business. I sent them business. Whenever I needed something from their business, I had a direct contact. It was besides getting $1 million in business in one phone call, right? You're not going to get that. But besides just somebody sending you a whole bunch of business, every aspect of meeting people through the chamber has been beneficial to me as a person.
So for you, the networking has
Yes.
paid off.
Yes, the
That's
networking. Again, some people think I don't want to go to the chamber because they're not going to buy 1,000 of my widgets. Well, they might not buy 1,000, but they may buy one. Their friend may buy another, and then when your computer goes out, you have a good computer guy you can contact, or paper guy you can call, or banking guy you can talk to. So,
Right.
And then, most importantly, the community involvement, helping each other out. So, and the ribbon cuttings
Right.
is where a lot of that
That's
originates.
Yeah, that's one of our events that we have to welcome the new business owners to Grand Prairie. Also, we will have the event for women, since March is Women's Month.
Oh yes.
Yeah, on the 25th.
Happy Women's Month.
Oh, thank you. So every year is Women's Year, but
Yeah, good. Well
Sure.
done. I agree.
All right.
I
So-
love them.
Oh, thank you. So March 25th at the Ruthie Jackson Center, we are
Okay.
having the 4th annual Life and Business in High Heels.
Okay.
Yes, this event is presented by Wells Fargo.
Okay.
So besides that, we have also so many other events going on. On the 19th, we have a retreat for
Okay.
women in the workplace.
Oh wow.
Yes, it's a leadership from the heart. That's the name, leadership from the heart. But this is in Spanish.
You have officially challenged me
Oy.
to get this podcast out as
Okay.
quick as possible, and I will, because I like
But
those
you
things.
can look at the remaining events in our website.
Yeah. So what's that website?
It's grandprairiechamber.org.
grandprairiechamber.org, and that'll
Yes.
have all your events.
Right.
And even if you're not a business owner, you accept memberships as community, just simple.
If you provide a service, if you sell a good, if you have a nonprofit, please join.
What if I just want to go and make friends?
Well, that sounds good. Why
Sure,
not?
come on, right?
Yeah, maybe our members will look at you as a prospective client.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, so I want to touch a little bit back on the immigration process. So you said you came as a resident. You were able to come, or did you?
I came with a tourist visa.
Tourist visa.
Yes.
You told me something about a resident. You became a resident at some
Yes.
point,
Mhm.
and then you get married.
Yes.
Now, is
I'm
your
married
husband-
to a U.S. citizen, and then I got a non-permanent residence for 2 years, and after the 2 years, I got like the permanent residency, which is 5 years. But if you are married to a U.S. citizen, you get the opportunity to become an American citizen after the 3 years of that marriage. Yes, but if you are if you are a permanent resident, you have to do it after 5 years.
Oh, interesting. So the process of going through each one of these things is kind of interesting to me. Now, is your citizenship based on, is it contingent on your marriage? I mean, God forbid, sorry, if things weren't to work out, does that
It is
affect your status?
no,
Wow.
no,
Okay. Very cool.
it is not.
Good.
The only process that is contingent on your marriage is when you become the 2 years resident, which
Okay.
is not the permanent, but the government gives you that.
Okay.
2
So
years.
I fall in love with a Costa Rican woman and we get married. So for the first 2 years, she can be here as you said temporary resident. I know there's a lot of different approaches, but she'd be a temporary resident.
A legal resident with
legal resident.
Yeah. Let's call it like that. That is not the word, but yes. So during the first 2 years, she will have to continue married with you.
Yeah.
You guys will have to continue with the good faith marriage
Tough.
everything good. Yes.
Tough on
good
her.
moral, paying taxes.
Yeah.
Yes. And afterwards, then you request to the USCIS to change your status to permanent.
Okay.
Yes.
During this process, I've seen citizenship academies in the sense that you go and learn to take like a citizenship test.
Yes, it's correct.
Is that also a part of the marriage approach, or is that you get to bypass that because of marriage? Are you still?
No, the citizenship it's on your own.
Okay.
After you had become a permanent resident.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
marriage more or less ultimately makes you a permanent resident.
Right.
Citizenship.
You can spend your whole life as a permanent resident. Yeah. I mean, that is not the point, right?
Yeah.
But, well, if that's your decision, that's fine. You have to renew your green card.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's every 5 or 10 years. I don't remember exactly. But after the first 5, then you get the chance to become an American citizen. And yes, you have to study the 100-question exam.
Yeah. How did you passed?
You have to be able to.
Did you fly through it, or was it kind of struggle? I mean, because I think most Americans.
It's not struggling. Let me tell you. You have to be able to read, to write, to listen, to have a very short conversation to the officer that is taking your exam.
Okay.
Yes, that it's addressing your exam, and yes, they have to ask you 10 questions about history, about some social movements, about everything in regard of the new country that you are gonna belong to.
How much of that was knowledge you gained in, let's say, 10 years being here, and knowledge you had to go study and learn?
That's a good question. I'll say that the personal knowledge that you get through the years, it's very valuable.
Yes, test.
But knowing about the country that you are about to become a citizen of, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It has no price.
Wow.
It has no price because in Mexico, I used to look at America like, oh, wow, it's a good country, but I never knew how all the processes, all the story that it went through, and all the colonies and all the formation, and what is America now? And when I had that book in my hands and knowing everything about the U.S., it completely changed not only my knowledge but the respect that I have for my country.
And so it was a book, and did you just took time out and just studied at your leisure until you were ready?
Yes, it's something very brief.
Yeah.
But on anything that you would like to get more information, of course, you do your own research.
Yeah.
But that gives you a very brief explanation, knowledge about the new country.
Let's. We've touched on some good stuff. I think I don't want to press it, so let's call it. I do want to say that since you've been involved with the chamber, you have increased its likability in the sense that I know that Grand Prairie was already a progressive city, but not only the citizens make it progressive, but now our business leadership community is very progressive, and there's not a lot of places where you're welcome in the streets and in the businesses and in all ways, shapes, or forms. It's an honor at many times, and I appreciate you doing that role.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on on here and sharing a lot of that. I don't have many followers, but I enjoy doing this. I enjoy having the conversation, and if one or two people get to hear that, and even if it takes doing their own research afterwards to find some stuff out, I think we've done a decent job. So consider coming back sometime, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cole.
Maria.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.